21. Second part. Now that you have the mercury, distilled urine, and sulfur, white salt, of the sages, you need to combine the two so they can putrefy and turn black. Crush the white salt into powder and place it into the 50 ml round bottom flask. Add a few drops of distilled urine, just enough to cover the salt, not too much. Hermetically seal the flask, making sure the stopper is airtight by putting wax, Vaseline or silicone sealant around it. Place the flask into the water bath. Only the bottom half of the round part of the flask should be in the water, the rest of the flask should be in the air. You might need to cut a hole in the lid of the water bath, or make your own lid. The temperature should be equal or slightly greater than body heat, around 100 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 to 40 degrees Celsius. At this stage the heat should be of the degree that causes evaporation and condensation to imitate rain, but the salt should always be moist and never dry. If the ambient, room, temperature is too high, you will need to reduce it by putting the water bath in an air-conditioned room, or putting ice against the neck of the flask. The process will be faster if the ambient temperature is lower. If you can see that there are drops of water condensed at the top of the vessel which never fall, then you need to reduce the ambient temperature. The salt will slowly absorb the moisture. The whole process can take longer than a year, so don't give up. As long as you know you have not used too much heat both now, and in the distilling of the first part, then it will work. When the salt has absorbed the moisture and starts to become dry, add another couple of drops of distilled urine. Then wait again until the salt again starts to dry, and add another couple of drops. Continue doing this until the salt is entirely saturated, at which point it will be of the consistency of melted wax. If you read the alchemical books, they warn against doing anything to disturb the stone while it's being made. They warn against too much heat, too little heat, too much water, not enough water, and knocking or moving the vessel in any way. In my experience, none of this is as bad as they make it sound. It's not a big deal if you knock or move the vessel, and it's not a big deal if the degree of heat is wrong, as long as it's not hot enough to burn. If there is too much water, you can remove some or increase the heat. While there is a problem, the stone will not develop any further, but it will continue once you've corrected your mistake. It is very proper that the purified earth be reduced by manual operation to an impalpable fineness, and then its corrected mercury must be added, incorporating both together till the earth will imbibe no more. This operation will require time, with some degree of the artist's patience, for however the humidity may seem disproportionate, on letting it rest a while, a dryness on the surface of your matter will show that it is capable of imbibing more, so that the operation is to be repeated till it is fully saturated. On the Philosopher's Stone, by Anonymous, 12th-17th Ken. That must again be dissolved into water, which before was water, and the body, which before was mercury, must again become mercury. The two must be united by a gentle and continuous fire, affording the same degree of warmth as that with which a hen hatches her eggs. The body must receive its spirit to drink gradually, and little by little, until it recovers its life, and health, and strength, which takes place by means of the same gentle heat which digests food in the stomach, and matures fruit in its place. The Glory of the World, or Table of Paradise, by Anonymous, 1526 AD. It is necessary at the beginning to give the earth little water, just as an infant has to be given at first little nutriment, and then gradually more. This should be repeated over and over again, with great patience, more and more water being poured over the earth each time, but not more than the earth can conveniently drink up. The Epistle of Bonus of Ferrara, by Peter Bonus, 14th century. A spirit that is at liberty will easily and quickly free another spirit of the same nature that is bound up and restrained. This is done first by reason of that activity and generability which the free spirit is imbued with, secondly by reason of the harmony, likeness and love betwixt them. This correlation is the cause that the exterior free spirit makes way into and joins with that spirit of salt included in the seed, and so does with more ease work upon him and excite him. For, as the proverb has it, like will easily go to like, and their unity is most intimate. Now you must know that very spirit, when loose and floating in liquid bodies or liquors, is at liberty in this state. By the mediation of heat, it does, like a lodestone, attract to it the spirit that is under restraint, opening and dissolving the body which holds it in. And the restrained spirit itself, like a sensible prisoner, labors for life by conspiring and striving to be in action and a full communion with the other. The free spirit by his sudden and subtle accession still exciting and strengthening him, and by this means so provokes him to action, as fire does enkindle fire, so that the body holding it must necessarily suffer a change and calcification, and comes to be putrefied by its own included spirit, whose operation before was obstructed and kept under. For the included spirit, having acquired liberty and the power to be in action from the other, strives to get out and enlarge itself, and to that end breaks and destroys its first body and procures another new one. So the spirit of salt of the earth, when it is dissolved in the unmixed humor of that element, since every salt melts in its own liquor, is then at liberty, for every salt when it is once dissolved in its own liquor becomes active. Hence it is that a corn of wheat, in whose body, as if under lock and key, the spirit of vegetable salt is bound up and fettered, as soon as it is cast into the ground, is by the free spirit of the salt of the earth penetrated and opened, that the salt which lies dissolved or loose in that liquor or in mixed humor may excite the vegetable spirit in the corn of wheat to action and vegetation, which spirit being thus set at liberty does presently, by putrefaction of the corn or grain, produce in the wheat's proper matrix the substance of the root, which is a new body, by whose mediation and deference the earth must afterwards, the spirit attracting it, communicate nutriment to the blade and the rest of this vegetable as it grows up and increases. When this spirit by due coction is once united with its body, they can never be separated again. Much water dissolves quickly, but then the coagulation which follows takes the longer, on which the ignorant, not knowing the nature of this work, fall into desperation when they perceive that the work does not coagulate in due time. The Chemist's Key, by Henry Nollius, 1617 AD. Let it be inserated with white oil of philosophers by little and little till it suddenly flow like wax. Verbum dismissum, by Count Bernard Trevisan, 15th Ken. If, then, you would attain the longed for goal, observe just measure in mixing the liquid substance of the sages, lest that which is too much overpower that which is too little, and the generation be hindered. For too much rain spoils the fruit, and too much drought stunts its growth. Therefore, when Neptune has prepared his bath, measure out carefully the exact quantity of permanent water needed, and let there be neither too little nor too much. The 12 Keys, by Basilius Valentinus, 15th Ken. Digest with a gentle fire, as it were for the hatching of chickens, so long till the bodies are dissolved, and their perfectly conjoined tincture is extracted. And then the one will be mixed with the other, and so embrace one another that it shall not be possible any more to separate them, but the spirit, with a real agreement, will be unified with the body, and make one permanent or fixed substance. The Secret Book of Artephius, by Artephius, 12th Ken. 22. Black Stage. When the salt has been entirely broken down and saturated with the distilled urine, it will turn black, which is a sign of putrefaction. Black is the natural color of decomposed matter. This mass thus blackened is the key and sign of perfect invention of this manner of work of the second regimen of our most precious stone. Wherefore saith Hermes, this blessing being seen, believe that you are in a good path, and have kept in the right way. So that this blackness in color shows the true and right manner of working, for hereby the matter is made deformed and corrupt with a true natural corruption, from whence follows generation and real disposition in this matter. Verbum dismissum, by Count Bernard Trevisan, 15th Ken. The seed putrefies when a 1. Salt of the same nature with it, dissolved in a convenient 2. Liquor, does by the assistance of a gentle heat 3. Penetrate, analyze and rarefy the substance of the seed, that the included spirit may, out of its subject matter, form a convenient 4. Habitation or body for itself, in which it may perform the offices of natural generation and seminal multiplication. The heat which promotes this putrefaction must be so mild and temperate that the liquor in which the resolving salt lies may remain still in and about the matter, and not be laved or evaporated from it. The body putrefying must not be removed out of the matrix in which the putrefaction was begun until that which is intended be fully perfected. When all is well united by purification or putrefaction, then she continues to bake it without separating the impure, until all is become a black glittering and heavy earth. The Chemist's Key, by Henry Nollius, 1617 AD. The body will not turn black suddenly, but it will have been getting darker and darker during the previous imbibing stage. The first color which appears after the silver color of the amalgamated body is not perfect blackness, but only a darkish white. The blackness becomes more pronounced day by day, until the substance assumes a brilliant black color. This black is a sign that the dissolution is accomplished, which does not come about in 1 hour, but gradually, by a continuous process. A Brief Guide to the Celestial Ruby, by Irenaeus Philalethes, 1694 AD. When the whole mass has turned black, then you know it has putrefied completely. This is a great sign, because you will now be more than halfway to completing the stone. The substance has now become of a uniform color, namely, as black as pitch, and neither vapors, or winds, or any other signs of life are seen. The whole is dry as dust, with the exception of some pitch-like substance, which now and then bubbles up. All presents an image of eternal death. An open entrance to the closed palace of the king, by an anonymous sage and lover of truth, 1645 AD. When you are sure that the salt is entirely saturated, then you need to turn up the heat a little. It's difficult to give an exact temperature since it depends on many factors, but just turn up the heat little by little until the body starts to become dry. But the heat still needs to be low enough that the moisture will rain down, the difference only being that during imbibing the salt had to be always moist, whereas now you want the salt to dry out between the rains. The earthly body of the sun is totally solved, and decomposed, and robbed of all strength. The body, which was first of a muddy impurity, changing to a coal-black color, called by the sages the raven's head, within the space of 40 days, and is thus despoiled of its soul, the moisture. The soul is borne upward, and the body, being severed from the soul, lies for some time, as if dead, at the bottom of the still, like ashes. But if the fire is increased, and well tempered, the soul gradually descends again in drops, and saturates and moistens its body, and so prevents it from being completely burned and consumed. Then, again, it ascends and descends, the process being repeated. The Sophic Hydrolith, or Water Stone of the Wise, by Anonymous, 17th Ken. Avicen saith, that heat causeth blackness first, in a moist body, then the humidity being consumed, it putteth off or elloseth its blackness, and as the heat increaseth, or is continued, so it grows white. The Root of the World, by Roger Bacon, 13th Ken. Slowly the body will start getting whiter, and may pass through different colors, including one that looks a bit reddish. Don't worry about these colors, we just need the body to get white. But as soon as the highest degree of intense blackness has been reached, there being no idle intervals in our work, that color begins little by little to yield to another, white. The time during which this blackness is developed is very long, and so is the time during which it disappears, but it is only for one moment that the blackness neither increases nor decreases, for things find rest only in that which is the end of their being, but blackness is not the end of our substance. In the course of this change from white to black, the substance naturally passes through a variety of intermediate colors, but these colors, being more or less accidental, are not invariably the same, and depend very much on the original proportion in which the two substances are combined. In the second stage, during which the substance changes from black to white, it is already far purer, the colors are more lucid, and more to be depended upon. In the two phases there are intermediate colors, but in the first they are more dingy and obscure than in the second, and very much less numerous. In the progress of the substance from blackness to whiteness, i.e., the second phase of our magistery, the most beautiful colors are seen in a variety such as eclipses the glory of the rainbow. Before the perfection of blackness is reached, there are also some transition colors, such as black, azure, and yellow, and the meaning of these colors is that your substance is not yet completely decayed, while the body is dying, the colors are seen, until black night shrouds the whole horizon in pitchy gloom. But when the process of resurrection begins, in the second phase, the hues are more numerous and splendid, because the body is now beginning to be glorified, and has become pure and spiritual. But in what order do the colors of which we speak appear? To this question no definite answer can be given, because in this first phase there are so much uncertainty and variation. But the colors will be the clearer and more distinct, the purer your water of life is. The four principal colors, white, black, white, red, always follow in the same order, but the order of the intermediate colors cannot be so certainly determined, and you ought to be content if within the first 40 days, weeks, you get the black color. There is only one caution you should bear in mind, in regard to this point. If a reddish color appears before the black, especially if the substance begins to look dry and powdery at the same time, you may be almost sure that you have marred your substance by too violent a fire. You should be very careful, then, about the regulation of your fire. If the fire be just hot enough, but not too hot, the inward chemical action of our water will do the rest. A Brief Guide to the Celestial Ruby, by Irenaeus Philalethes, 1694 AD. 23. White stage. Having adjusted the heat during the black stage, so that the body dries out in between rains, the black body will slowly pass through various colors and turn white. As when turning black, the whiteness will not appear suddenly one day, but it will be a slow progress over a few months. When you find it black, know that in blackness whiteness is hidden, and you must extract the same from his most subtle blackness. But after put rifact ion it waxes red, not with a true redness, of which one says, it is often red, and often of a citrine color, it often melts, and is often coagulated, before true whiteness. There appears also before whiteness the peacock's color, whereon one says thus, know you that all the colors in the world, or that may be imagined, appear before whiteness, and afterward true whiteness follows. The Mirror of Alchemy, by Roger Bacon, 13th Ken. After the putrefaction and conception, which has taken place at the bottom of the vessel, there is once more a change of colors and a circulating sublimation. This reign, or regimen, lasts only 3 weeks, months. During this period you see all conceivable colors concerning which no definite account can be given. The showers that fall will become more numerous as the close of this reign approaches, and its termination is signalized by the appearance of a snowy white streaky deposit on the sides of the vessel. Rejoice, then, for you have successfully accomplished the regimen of Jupiter. What you must be particularly careful about in this operation, is to prevent the young ones of the crow from going back to the nest when they have once left it. Secondly, to let your earth get neither too dry by an immoderate sublimation of the moisture, nor yet to swamp and smother it with the moisture. These ends will be attained by the proper regulation of the outward heat. While it passes from blackness to whiteness, a great variety of colors are observed. Nor is it at once perfectly white. At first it is simply white. Afterwards it is of a dazzling, snowy splendor. An open entrance to the closed palace of the king, by an anonymous sage and lover of truth, 1645 AD. Decoct the male and the female or vapor together, until such time as they shall become one dry body. For except they be dry, the divers or various colors will not appear. For it will ever be black, whilst that humidity or moisture has the dominion. But if that be once wasted, then it emits divers colors, after many and several ways. And many times it shall be changed from color to color, till such times as it comes to the fixed whiteness. Sin and Seth, all the colors of the world will appear in it when the black humidity is dried up. But value none of these colors, for they be not the true tincture. Yea, many times it becomes citrine and reddish, and many times it is dried, and becomes liquid again, before the whiteness will appear. The Root of the World, by Roger Bacon, 13th Ken. When the body has turned totally white and all the moisture has disappeared, you have the white stone, which can either be fermented with silver, or continued to the maturity of the red stone. Both the white stone and red stone must be fermented with silver or gold respectively before they are complete. It is only possible to ferment the white stone with silver, and the red stone with gold, nothing else can be used, neither can silver or gold be used to ferment both. There are no other ferments like these here. The ferment of silver is silver, the ferment of gold is gold, therefore don't look elsewhere. Compound of Compounds, by Albertus Magnus, 13th Ken. The ferment, silver or gold, is not considered to be an ingredient of the stone. The stone is already developed when we apply the ferment, but it needs to be fermented in order to be used for our purposes. The stone would be harmful if ingested without being fermented first. The stone will break down the silver or gold into its own form, but adopt the frequency and stability of the ferment. The life energy needs to be given an impression of a stable form. A small quantity of gold and silver is, indeed, necessary when the stone is made, as a medium for its tinging either in the white or red tinctures. On the Philosopher's Stone, by Anonymous, 12th-17th Ken. 12. And although the wise men want some common gold in the fermentation of their stone, that the same may be determinated to transmute imperfect metals into sol, it does not therefore follow that common sol should make perfect our stone. 13. On the contrary, our stone rather makes perfect common sol and lunar, because the most perfect sol is imperfect and unfruitful without our stone. But when it comes to be united to our stone, it becomes alive and fruitful and can communicate part of its perfection to other metals. The Chemist's Key, by Henry Nollius, 1617 AD. The red tincture is obtained from gold, and the white tincture from silver. Without a proper ferment, the moon cannot become the sun, but the substance, having nothing to prevent it from doing so, will again revert to water. The weight of the ferment must exceed, or at least be equal to, the weight of its sulfur. The Epistle of Bonus of Ferrara, by Peter Bonus, 14th century. The fermentation is the same process as the second part of the work, only we will also add silver or gold, and the process will be much faster. The quantity of silver or gold you use should be between 2 to 10 times the quantity of the stone. Find the purest silver or gold you can. It must be as close to 100% pure as possible. It's best to use silver or gold dust, as the reaction will be faster, the pieces are smaller, increased surface area. If you can't get dust, then file down a coin or whatever you have. To perform the fermentation, and also for multiplication, grind the stone to dust and mix this together with the ferment, silver for white, gold for red. Optionally, you can melt this mixture of the stone and the ferment together with a heat strong enough to melt gold, then beat it into plates and grind it into powder again. This optional stage will speed up the process. Now add a small amount of distilled urine again, and continue with the imbibing, blackening and whitening, then reddening if you are fermenting, multiplying the red stone, as you did previously, following chapters 22 to 24. The fermentation process should take 1 to 3 months the first time. Now the white stone is complete. It can be multiplied in quantity and quality, and raised to the power of the red stone. The stone or elixir cannot be used for this purpose in the form in which we left it at the completion of the previous stage of our process, red or white, but it should be still further fermented and augmented in the following manner, as otherwise it could not be conveniently applied to imperfect metals and bodies. Take 1 part of the essence, and add to it 3 parts of purest gold, or silver, respectively, which has been purged and melted by means of antimony, and reduced to very thin plates. Let them be placed together in the crucible. Thereupon the whole compound will be transformed into a pure and efficacious tincture, which, when applied to base metals, in the ratio of 1:1000, will change them into pure gold, or silver, respectively. The substance of the sages, after all the changes that it has undergone, will do more harm than good as a medicine applied to the body, without the final preparation. The Sophic Hydrolith, or water stone of the wise, by Anonymous, 17th Ken. Oral. Aurelius says likewise, in his 3rd book, first mingle a little of the prepared medicament with the yellow metal, and thou wilt presently see the same take to itself the strength of the blessed powder. Or, when thou shalt have collected again, by great and difficult art, the teeming seed from the pure gold, Then quickly mix with it an equal portion of purple powder, and warm the same with gentle heat, simmering for 2 months, in which space of time thou mayst behold produced the whole series of colours, which, otherwise, thou hadst marvelled to see in 3 years. Often as thou repeatest the operation again and again, so often shalt thou increase the virtue and quantity of thy powder. An explanation of the natural philosopher's tincture, of Paracelsus, by Alexander von Suchten, 16th Ken. It is to be observed in the fermentation, that the elixir exceed not the ferment in quantity. Otherwise the sponsal ligament of it cannot be actually performed, and when the ferment is predominant over the elixir, all will be presently turned into dust. The best method of fermentation is to take one part of the elixir, and put it into the midst often parts of gold in filings. Aphorisms of Urbigerus, by Baro Urbigerus, 1690 AD.